Hello, everyone. So, yeah, I know it's been a while. It's been way too long, and sorry about that. It's not like I haven't been working. Actually, I've been working quite a bit. Even been doing some work on the truck, and yeah, I just didn't get around to actually recording it because I didn't want to take the time to record it. But I'm pretty sure you didn't come here to listen to my excuses. You came here to hear about, well, as the title might imply, how I got started in welding and what my first year of welding was like, and basically how I got into the job that I'm in now, which is actually a pretty good one. In fact, you're looking at footage of me welding stuff at work. And oh, by the way, the spyglasses I'm using to record that, probably not going to use those for welding anymore because they're not very good at it, but they might be pretty good for working on the truck. I don't know, we'll give that a try. Anyways, when I started this channel back in 2016, if you look at my first couple of videos, you'll notice that I wanted to get into welding because what I was doing at the time was not working out too well, and I wanted to make a change in career. Now, about a year after I started this channel in 2017, actually in April of 2017, I did experience a pretty major tragedy in my life. At the end of April 2017, my mom passed on. And one of the last conversations I had with her, she told me that she wanted me to take some time off from work, some time off from my job that I hated at the time, and spend that time concentrating on getting better at welding so I can get a good job as a welder. That's what she really wanted me to do. Well, eventually, I did take that time off. And eventually, I got better at welding. And after months, and I mean months, of pounding pavement, of taking welding tests and either failing them or getting turned down, I finally got my first welding job, that being in a trailer shop. And I was a trailer mechanic, but it did also involve me doing a lot of welding because I was either making repairs to trailers that required welding, or I was making modifications to trailers that required welding. That job only lasted me about 2 weeks, and the owner of the shop pretty much figured out, okay, one, I'm not fast enough, and two, I would probably be much happier fabricating rather than what I was doing, and he was right. And I even said, look, can you move me over to the fabrication shop rather than getting rid of me? He didn't have any openings there. I said, call me when you do. Haven't heard from him since. Anyways, from there, I had a string, and I mean, this is for a solid year. I had a string of temp jobs, of jobs that maybe they weren't temp, maybe they did go permanent, but they weren't exactly all that great. For a few months, I was working in a shop that exclusively did aluminum, which was great. Unfortunately, it was spool gun MIG, not TIG welding, but still picked up some more skills, and I got really good at spool gun MIG welding aluminum. I was very impressed with myself. The only thing is that job really didn't pay all that well, and eventually I did drag up, move to somewhere else. Unfortunately, the job I dragged up to, again, didn't work out too well. The place was basically a sweatshop. And here's the thing. A solid year after my mom passed on, I was at one of those temp welding jobs, and I have to say, I am glad that when you're a welder and you're wearing a welding hood, they can't see the tears in your eyes. Because here it is, a solid year after my mom passed on, and I'm thinking about it, and here's my job title at that time. Yeah, it was a temp job, but it was still welder, and I'm like, Mom, I made it. I wish you could have seen me then. But unfortunately, she wasn't there, and I'm not sure, those of you who are listening to this right now, where you're at spiritually. I'm actually an atheist. I don't really believe in an afterlife, yet sometimes I like to think that maybe people I cared about who have moved on, maybe there's something left of them that's watching me, that's guiding me, even though that really doesn't fit into what I actually believe. But at the very least, sometimes there's a thought and a voice in my head that sometimes kind of haunts me. Anyways, I was proud, but at the same time, I was trying not to tear up. So, like I said, my first year, nothing but, like I said, either temp jobs or jobs that went permanent but weren't very good or didn't pay very well. But I was picking up a lot of skills. I was working in different places and seeing different things being done. And then, finally, I had taken on a temp job, and I had taken this temp job out of desperation because some other things hadn't worked out for me, and I needed something, and I needed something good. And that temp job did not pay well at all, but I needed the money, so I did it. That temp job actually led to the job I'm at now. I started there as a temp. 3 months I was a temp, making shit for wages. At this point, this would be a solid 2 years after my mom passed on, and I'm being handed paperwork to go full-time as a regular permanent employee rather than a temp. So that's how my first year as a welder ended, was with me getting this job. A job that I already had, but going permanent in a structural steel shop. Pay was good, work was regular, and I mean that's where I've been ever since, and I mean it's been pretty good. So if all is well that ends well, my first year as a welder was fucking awesome. But the reality is my first year as a welder fucking sucked. And it didn't help that I spent so much time pounding pavement to even get started in the first place. Now, looking back, I mean right now I am totally happy with where I'm at. It's just like what I've tell my boss every time I go for a raise. I'm probably not going to retire, but I'm going to be there for a long time because the next place I want to move on to is doing my own thing, but I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon. But if, looking back, is there anything I would have done differently? There is plenty of things I would have done differently. Like, this was a learning experience, and unfortunately, it was a learning experience that, I wish I would have had somebody to guide me. I wish I had somebody to help me out. Somebody like me that's been through what I've just been through, to come back and tell me, no, don't do this, or yeah, you should have done that, or hold on, do this. Maybe I would have been better off, maybe not. It's hard to say. Looking back, I kind of do wish I had gone to trade school. That's the thing about me. I never went to trade school. I learned most of what I know about welding either on the job or before I got the job. I learned it on YouTube right here. I learned it through fucking around and finding out. Is the best way I can describe it. Fuck around and find out. That's how I learned how to weld. That and watching a lot of YouTube videos. Now, looking back, should I have gone to trade school? If I could have afforded to go to trade school, yes, I should have definitely gone to trade school, if anything, because I think I would have avoided some of the problems I had in finding a job, because I would walk into these places and they'd see that my previous job experience was that of a hotel night auditor, and they were not really taking me all that seriously, even if they gave me a welding test. There was one place, they gave me a welding test, and I swear the guy that had me take the welding test, who was like some salesman or some shit, I think he just did it as a goof. And here's the thing, the guy who was actually administering the test, who was a foreman, was pretty damn impressed with what I could do, but for some reason I didn't get the job. It's like, okay, you got one guy who's impressed, another guy who's kind of treating me like a joke. In the end, I'm glad I didn't get that job, because things I've heard since then, that place wasn't a very good place to work at. Other things, one thing I do, looking back, I do have to say, while temp agencies aren't a bad way to get a job, they're not. Going through a temp agency is not a bad way to get a job at all. In fact, if you're like me and you've got social anxiety and it's hard for you to market yourself, sometimes the temp agency can do a better job of that than you ever could. Just what I've experienced. The only problem is I can't tell you how many times the temp agency sent me somewhere for a job, and the place they sent me to had a now hiring sign out front, like I didn't need the temp agency to get the job. I could have just walked in there on my own. So I think I may have been a better idea for me to, instead of going to a temp agency, spend a little more time pounding pavement. In saying that, I'm not saying avoid temp agencies. If you're like me and you can't market yourself, they're not a bad idea. But if you can market yourself, by all means, do it. And sometimes that might be actually driving physically to the places of business, and if they've got a now hiring sign, walking in. It's kind of funny, because the trades that I've noticed, at least where I live and what I've worked in, the trades are still a bit of a step behind in some ways technologically, where they're not doing their job applications online, they're not posting their jobs online. It's pretty much like it was back in the olden days. They put a now hiring sign out front and people walk in. And when people don't see the now hiring sign, that's when they go to the temp agencies. So I guess try to skip the temp agencies and actually go to the businesses. That's just, like I said, that's one of the things I've experienced. I think that something that would have helped me immensely is if I had a friend who was a welder, which unfortunately at the time I didn't. Now I've got plenty of friends who are welders because I work with them. So there is that. I will say this, and this is some subject matter for not just another video, but something that I'm going to put on my other channel, which I will put a link to down below, where my other channel I tend to discuss a lot more social, political things, and I tend to avoid that. Here I come here to get away from society, to get away from politics and stuff like that. But there were some changes that I noticed in myself since I've got this job. Some of that's because of my mental health improving. Some of that's because of other things. It just gets into, I worked hard to get to where I am, and, did pulling myself up by my bootstraps in a very hardcore manner, and it's really changed how I look at things. and how I look at, say, for instance, other people who are struggling. So that's going to be a subject matter for another video, and again, that's going to be on my other channel, since that does get into society and politics and that kind of stuff, and I don't like to talk about that on this channel. Anyways, thank you everyone for listening. If you've got anything in regards to my jobs and whatnot that I've had that you'd like to know about, put it in the comments section. Maybe I'll make another video. I will say this, like I said, my first year as a welder sucked, but I've been with the same company now ever since that first year, and it's been good. I've not gotten a promotion, but, you know, I've been getting good raises. I've learned quite a bit. I went from being just to just doing one type of MIG welding, that being flux core, to now they have me sometimes they have me shooting studs, sometimes they have me operating machines. There's all kinds of stuff I can do there now, whereas when I first got there, I could weld, but that was about it. Now, I could do anything in that shop, and I'm good at it. And not only that, I'm learning more in the way of fabrication and, you know, starting out with a set of prints and turning that prints into a reality, which I really fucking like. I like what I do. I'm happy with what I do. And if you're new into welding, or you want to get into welding, you're actually the kind of people that I want to hear from, and I, you know, now want to help out. You know, whether that be doing instructional videos, I'm not sure if I actually want to do those because there's plenty of those. That's how I learned. Or if it's, you know, guiding somebody along the path in, like, getting their first job, or I don't know. Put some suggestions down below in the comments if there's anything you'd like me to talk about. Like I said, my first year was hell, and there's maybe some things I've learned that maybe I should pass on, but I'm not sure exactly what yet without making this video way longer than it needs to be, and it's already pretty goddamn long by my standards. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, everyone. By the way, tell me how my welds look, because this is what I do at work. This was recorded by me at work. So, thanks. Have a wonderful day, and I'll be talking to you later.